We're not divided today because of who's in office. We're not divided today because of our society is worse than previous generations. No, that's not it at all. Don't. That's just a very easy way out. We're divided today, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to share with you a very powerful example of how you can become unshakable in our world today. How wouldn't it be nice, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if no matter what's going on in the world around us, no matter what's happening in Washington, D.C., or no matter what's happening on any street in any city in this country, wouldn't it be nice if we could remain, first of all, at peace, grounded, and actually somebody that can be a voice of reason and healing and power and solutions to the deepest issues we face. See, what I have observed that and people are good, people mean well, but so many of the most well-meaning people, good people, often become part of the noise. They actually add to the division and the sectarianism and the tribalism, and that's not what they're trying to do. They actually add to the further chaos that's going on in our society, and I know that's not their intention. So in today's video, if you desire to be a solution, to be a peacemaker, to be somebody that is a voice of healing and wholeness for our society, then this is your video. Don't skip to the end. Don't think that this doesn't apply to you. It really does. Hi, my name is Jamal Javanji. I am a life coach by profession. I started a company called Free to Love Coaching Solutions, LLC. I'm really glad you're here. And in this video, we're going to really address the root to that question, why so many of us get affected by current events, by political conversations, by all these different things, why we devolve into such division. And it's actually much simpler than you may think. What we're going to talk about is, number one, why we're so divided. What's really going on? Why do we devolve to sectarianism? We're going to get to the root of that. And number two, I'm going to share with you a very powerful story of how you can become unshakable, how you can become literally unaffected. That doesn't mean you don't care. That doesn't mean you become cold-hearted. It just means your state of being remains very high and grounded and peaceful and loving no matter what's going on in our world around us. Wouldn't you like to be that kind of person? Of course you do. Of course you would. We all do. That's our nature. So here's the question. Why are so many of us divided, at each other's throats, talking about this side and how the left or the right is doing this and that? Why do we do that? I'll tell you why. And the answer is very simple. We have a dysregulated nervous system. Don't tune me out. Listen closely. We have a dysregulated nervous system. That means we don't feel safe in our inner being. And how do we know that? Well, it doesn't take very much. A news story, a change in our environment, a change in our society, and instantly, right? We become inflamed. We become triggered. People don't feel safe. People want to move out of the country. People want to go on the streets and riot, right? Okay. Now, again, nothing wrong with moving away. Nothing wrong with making your voice heard. This is not a video about the rightness or wrongness of that. We're talking about collective dysregulation of nervous systems. And when the nervous system is dysregulated, you are prone to fighting or fleeing, both of which make any problems you have in life. Now think about this on an individual scale. You've lived your life, you've had problems. Every time you become reactive and lash out and fight, does it make the problem better or worse? You already know the answer to that, right? It makes the problem worse. Every time you avoid a problem and run the other direction, does it make the problem better or worse? You already know the answer. Makes it much worse, right? So anytime we as a society are doing one or the other, it's not helpful. It's not helpful for us. It's not helpful for our society because there's a lot we need to do, right, when situations arise. So Here's what's happening, and I've observed this. An event happens, we watch the news, a very disturbing event happens, we witness it, we become dysregulated at the nervous system level. We don't always look at it like that, but we feel anxious, we feel scared, we feel outraged, we feel angry. Again, all of that, none of those are bad emotions. But if you don't learn how to turn inward and deal with those emotions, you will create problems out here. And this is what people do. They lash out, they fight, they want to try to be the solution, but they're speaking from that place of division and fear. Most of it's unconscious. Most people don't even know they're doing it. And then as a result, it grabs the attention of people around them. It grabs the attention of the algorithm, the social media algorithms. And then it pays you in the form of attention. You gather more of this toxic attention, likes, shares, whatever it may be. And that in itself is a false sense of progress. It gives you a false sense, gives many people a false sense of progress, like you're actually making a difference. But really, what's happening is you are amplifying the noise. That's all that's happening. And the more that noise is amplified, the more agitated all of us become. The collective nervous system of our society becomes more agitated. And as a result, there's people, when we stir up, if we are acting or, speaking from this place of fear and division, and we're outraged and we want to fight or we're afraid of something, when we speak from that place or show up and act from that place, it actually is a resistive form of energy. And in the coaching world, we always say this: what you resist persists. What you resist persists. So when you go into resistance mode, you are actually, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire you're trying to put out. I want to say that again. You need to write this down. This is a game changer. Every time you resist something you don't want, you empower it. You are literally empowering the thing you don't want by resisting it. So the question is, then people say, well, should we just do nothing? No, of course not. I'm not saying do nothing. That's a whole other conversation, which we're going to touch on. But when you are resisting something from a place of fear or anger, you're fighting something, or you're fleeing for something, or you're afraid of something, and you act from that place, you are resisting it. And what you resist persists. It's like pouring energy. You're giving energy to the very thing you don't want. And so therefore you empower that. Now, in social media circles, what's it look like? Arguments and pushback, and people are arguing with each other online. And every time that happens, you get a little more dysregulated because you don't feel safe, because somebody, and I would just challenge you. Next time you're having a conversation or a debate with somebody, and you're disagreeing with them or they're disagreeing with you, and you're going back and forth, especially in an online conversation, I want you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, how does that feel to you? Yeah, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it's destabilizing, right? So then what happens is we start to look for people who agree with us. Who agrees with me? And then somebody may comment, chime into the discussion, and it's supportive of you, and that feels good. So then we want to share more, and we get caught up into this quote unquote dialogue because we're trying to attract people to our side of view. We want people to agree with us. Now, why do we want people to agree with us? Many times it's because we have an agenda. We have an agenda to convert people to our way of thinking. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, if you have something helpful to share. But many times we're unconscious to a deeper motivation, which is, I want people to agree with me so I can feel better. And largely that is what tribalism and sectarian conversation, and this is why we stir it up and we point the fingers at the other side and talk about how bad they are. It's because we want people to agree with us. And when people agree with us, we feel temporarily good. We feel safe. I got some people who agree with me. It makes me feel safe. I was having a conversation with one of my good friends and coaching clients. Her name's Rebecca. Rebecca, if you're watching this, I salute you. But in this conversation, she actually pointed that out. She said, I think we get sucked into these debate and tribal conversations, and because we really just don't feel safe, and we want to know that there's people that agree with us so that we can feel like, okay, I'm not alone. People agree with me, right? It's not wrong to want to feel safe. It's not wrong to want to feel like you're not alone. But if you're unconscious to that motivation, it's going to create a lot of problems, because here's the issue with that. You're using people. You're not of service when you're using people for your own benefits, even if it's to regulate your own nervous system. Many times relationships, and this is kind of the subject of the conversation I had with my friend Rebecca, we talked a lot about what's the motivation of relationships or having dialogue. And for many, many people, if we're not conscious, it's because we want something. We want affirmation. We want people to toot our horn. We want people to help us feel good about ourselves, significant, whatever it may be. Or we want people to help us feel safe. And so we look for supporters. This is why we become sectarian and tribal. And this is why we lash out looking for people to agree with us, because we don't feel safe. It's a dysregulated nervous system. Does that make sense? It's a very, very important point, something that we need to become aware of. So what do you do about that, right? Well, you have to regulate the nervous system. In order to be a solution to the problems that we have in this world, which, I can just be honest, this is why I do the work I do. I have an intention and a real strong desire to be of service to this world. This is why I'm a life coach. I want to help people heal and become energetically abundant and vibrant. I am very passionate about abundance, because this world is abundant, because life is abundant. I'm very passionate about peace, because life is peaceful. Conflict and lack, poverty and suffering, all of these things are distortions to the way life actually is. And I'm here and I do the work I do so that people can enter into an abundant experience of life. That's why I'm here, so that you and I can live abundantly. And I don't just mean that financially, but I am including finance. Of course, we want to live financially abundant, but I'm talking about an abundance of peace, an abundance of love, an abundance of well-being. You name it, an abundance of it, because that's how life is. That's why I do the work that I do. Tell you a quick story about what is possible when we regulate the nervous system. So a few years ago, back in 2020, do you guys all remember 2020 and what was going on in the world, right? I don't want to give language to a lot of that, but there was a lot going on in 2020, as you know. And people were alarmed by what was going on in our society, by what was happening, both, from a health standpoint, also from a governmental standpoint, from a social standpoint, lots of upheaval, right? And like many of us, we were alarmed, and people's nervous systems were dysregulated, and we were stressed, and society came to a stop. People were concerned about money and finances and survival, and it was a big deal. And at that time, right around that time, I was working with a coaching client of mine who he's a doctor. He's a doctor of chiropractic. He had his own chiropractic practice, and a very, very, very good practice. He's a great chiropractor, did great work, and has a great practice. And well, as you know, what happened in 2020, and his business was shut down basically overnight. And in the state he was practicing in, the state deemed his service as being non-essential. So he went from having a thriving practice where patients were coming in and seeing him, and he had a staff, and his business was growing year after year. He went from that to having it shut down literally overnight. So as you can imagine, right? He was scared, terrified. How's he going to pay the bills? How's he going to, is he going to have to lay off his staff? Is he going to have to give up his practice? So when we were talking, and I was working with him right around that time, no coincidences. I know that whenever I work with a coaching client, it's at the right time, both in their lives and also what's going on even in the wider world. I've discovered that. I've seen that pattern. So instantly he was in a panic, naturally. When we started working together, he was right at the precipice of giving up his practice. Now, this is something that he went to school for, to be a doctor, you have to go to school for quite a few years. He had invested so much into his practice. He had a thriving business. He was about to walk away from all of it and ditch it. He was packing his car and thinking about going to a completely different state and trying to start all over. And he was very much in a fight or flight state of being, right? Mostly flight. And I've learned over time that you'll never make decisions, good decisions, from a state of fear or a dysregulated nervous system. Every decision you make from that place creates more of the same problem that you're trying to avoid. I've done it in my own life. I've seen it in so many people's lives, right? You never make, and I'm sure you're aware of this, we never make good decisions from a place of fear and lack and perceptions of lack, and we actually create more of that. So I knew when I was working with this client that because he was seeking wisdom and guidance about how to leave the state and start all over. And I just knew that was not the conversation we needed to have. And we embarked on a process of regulating his nervous system. And to make a long story short, that is a process. But as he started to feel more grounded and safe in his being, we could then start to talk about what to do, right? His business is shut down, money has stopped coming in, all of that, right? So he's obviously concerned. But we had this conversation. I remember some light bulbs going off with him when I said, hey, listen, can I ask you a question? Does your service, being a chiropractor, is it helpful during a massive health crisis that's going on in our society? Does it actually help people deal with that? He goes, are you kidding me? And he just came alive. He said, my service, what I do, literally strengthens the immune system. It helps people fight disease. It actually, and he just goes on and on and on about why what he does is essential. I said, oh, well, it sounds like your work is needed now more than ever. He said, yeah, but I don't know what I can do because we're shut down. We legally can't open our practice. And I said, okay, totally. But is your service needed? He's like, absolutely. I said, so probably not an accident that you're practicing this line of medicine, this line of health, during a global crisis in health. If you can't shine, if this is not a time for you to come alive, I don't know a better time. Do you? And he started to see it. He said, no, actually, I said, could it be that for such a time as this, you're here? And he started to see it. And he said, yeah, but only because he started to feel safe. So we started to brainstorm and he started to think, and I'm just going to give you a couple little examples of this. He said, yeah, but how do I communicate with my patients? Because they can't come in and see me. I was like, well, maybe you can communicate with them. We started to brainstorm. And as he became grounded and entered a very rich, restful, meditative state of being, all these creative ideas started coming in. And he said, I could do a newsletter and send it out. And I could have them do some, because it's all about service, right? I said, are there things they can be doing on their own to improve their spinal health and their spinal connection and all these different things? And he goes, absolutely. And so he started writing articles and sending them out to his clients or his patients that were not able to come to his office. And he would send them out. And he felt so good. He's like, I feel like I'm not just sitting there waiting, right? I feel like I'm doing something. Great. Anything else? So he got some replies to those emails. Thank you so much. I've really missed coming into the office. I can't wait till this is over so I can come back in. I really need an adjustment. I need this. I need that. So they were very thankful for him reaching out through those articles he sent out to his database of patients. And then he started to follow up. I said, well, maybe you can call him and just make sure, because not everybody maybe got that email or not everybody read the email. So he said, that's brilliant. I was like, now that the office is closed, do you have time? He's like, yeah, I got all this time in the world. He's like, I'll just go through so he starts making these phone calls. And he starts calling all his patients, hundreds, maybe thousands. And he gets on the phone, and they were so many of them were like, wow, like, I really appreciated your email, but wow, you're calling me. He said, yeah, I just want to check in on you. How are you doing? How are you navigating this global health crisis? And they said, I've been scared. I've been feeling alone and can't leave my house. And thank you so much for calling. They were so appreciative. And they said, we can't wait till this is over so we can come back in and get adjusted, because it's been such an important part of our life. And so he thought about that. And We had more conversations, and obviously we're talking the span of many, many days and weeks in our coaching sessions that we were having these conversations. And in a time of connection and dropping into his body and listening to his spirit and to his heart, this thought came in. He said, wait a minute, I have a mobile table. I have a table that will allow me to actually, if they can't come to my office, I wonder if I can come to them. Now it's risky during this whole shutdown and everything, but I wonder if I call them and or even just send out an email newsletter to all my clients and offer the people who are local that I'd be willing to come to them if they're willing to take that risk, that he would be glad to come to them. And so he reached out to his patients, and he was inundated. People said, please, we would love it if you came. And so he started, because they couldn't come to him, he got in the car and he packed up his mobile equipment and he went to their homes. And they were just so beyond overjoyed to have connection, to feel like the world's coming to them. They felt served. So he was adjusting. But then what ended up happening is a lot of their family members, people he never knew or saw, were there in the home. And some of them wanted to be adjusted. So he picked up new patients, and some of them were like, can you stay for dinner? And so he started forming new relationships, and it was just amazing. Now, without going too much into his story, I know I've shared a lot of his story with you, but do you see what can happen when your nervous system is regulated? You can actually become part of the solution and actually serve and help people when you're not dysregulated and just wanting to point fingers and get support and get people to agree with you. It's about becoming regulated so that you can actually be of service and help heal our society. And that's exactly what he was doing as a chiropractor, from a regulated nervous system. Once his nervous system was regulated, he could be of service. So he really served his patients during a severe health crisis in our, obviously all around the world. And a lot of his patients did well, even though some of them became sick from what was going on at that time. They rebounded very well because they were in a good state of health, largely because of the work that he was doing with his patients. So I'll never forget it personally, that towards the end of the year, we were having a coaching session, and it just so happens that our coaching session was right after he got off a call with his accountant. And he said, Jamal, I don't know how to explain this. I said, what's going on? He said, we've had a thriving practice for years, for several years, and we've grown, incrementally over the years. He said, but would you believe that this has been our best year yet? I've doubled my income. Our chiropractic office, his business, doubled in 2020. And the only reason it doubled, when so many other businesses went out, he had so many colleagues, other chiropractors that had thriving businesses that never recovered. They closed and never opened again. And he said, I can't believe I doubled my income. And he was so thankful and full of gratitude. And the only reason he doubled his income and didn't go under during a crisis like that was because he regulated his nervous system so he could respond to the situation that was going on as opposed to react to it. Does that make sense? It's an absolutely incredible story. So the most significant thing any of us can do for ourselves, for the people we love, and for our greater society and world around us is to make sure that we do the inner work, that we learn how to regulate our internal nervous system. And I want to tell you a little bit about my signature life coaching program that has transformed the lives of not just the chiropractor I was telling you about back in 2020, but countless other people that I have had the awesome privilege of working with over the years who have had their lives transformed. And particularly, it's a program that I have called the Energy Acquisition System. And you can find out a little more information about that program right here.
I just wasn't sleeping anymore. I felt like I was stuck. I could not stay motivated, and it was hard to focus. I tried self-help books, therapy. I even took a vacation, and nothing helped. And then I found a personal coaching system that gave me back my life. Hi, Jamal.
What she discovered is the energy acquisition system developed by Jamal Javanji, a globally recognized coach featured on Fox Network, Newsmax TV, and an Amazon best-selling author with over 100 podcast episodes guiding listeners and transforming men and women worldwide.
My 90-day coaching system is for anyone looking for a renewed sense of vitality and well-being.
I haven't felt this alive in years. Jamal changed that.
Don't just wait for a change. Do something about it. Book your session with Jamal today.
Your breakthrough begins the moment you say, yes, I'm ready for change. Hit the button below and let's get started. So again, don't be shy. If you would like to hear any more information about this, if this piques your interest in any way, pay attention to that. It doesn't hurt to learn more information. Reach out. Don't be shy. The link is below this video. You'll be able to schedule your free consultation call where we can hear a little bit more about your situation, and you can also hear a little bit more about my signature program called the Energy Acquisition System. All right. If this video has spoken to you in any way, if it's been helpful for you, let me invite you to not ignore that. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. All of these things, the thumbs up, the subscription, all of that helps this channel get out to more people. And it is my service to humanity. And if that's something that resonates with you and that has been helpful for you, please share the video. It's completely free, very easy to do. You can tell somebody about it. You can hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel. All of that helps. Okay. Until next time, I can't wait to hear in the comment section how this may have been of benefit to you. Would love to hear from you about that. Take care.